Why do you constantly feel like you're the only person in the room who can't fake it? You're at a gathering, everyone is laughing at the same superficial stories, and you're just sitting there, waiting for the conversation to actually become real. You've tried to fit in. You've tried to act excited about the things everyone else loves. But deep down, you feel disconnected, exhausted, and frankly, a little bit weird. You aren't broken, and you aren't antisocial. You're just experiencing the reality of being an old soul in a high speed world. Today, we're breaking down the 7 specific signs that your brain processes life on a different frequency, and why that isn't a flaw, but a design feature. If this hits close to home, you're likely operating on a wavelength most people don't understand. Here are the 7 signs that you are an old soul. Sign 1. You find small talk physically draining. You're holding a drink you don't particularly want. Listening to someone recount a mundane story about a coworker's recent breakup, or the latest viral trend. Everyone around you is fueling the conversation with genuine energy. You smile, you offer the right facial expressions, and you nod in all the right places, but inside, your brain feels completely offline. It feels like you're watching a movie where the audio track has been replaced by static. You are waiting for the conversation to pivot to something with actual weight, something that relates to human character or a real life experience, but it never does. You eventually walk away feeling exhausted, wondering why you find it so difficult to engage with the kind of chatter everyone else handles with ease. Sign 2. Your brain struggles to turn off big picture mode. The first moment this usually happens is when you are trying to participate in the current moment. You look at a group of friends obsessing over a fleeting piece of news, a celebrity scandal, or an office rumor, and you just cannot find the emotional anchor to latch onto. Your brain doesn't just see the event, it immediately zooms out to the pattern. You aren't thinking about the rumor, you're thinking about how people always repeat this same mistake, or how this specific behavior is just a symptom of something much larger. It's not that you think you are better than the conversation. It is that your internal processing speed is stuck on big picture mode. Your brain has a loose filter that lets in too much context, history, and potential outcomes. Sign 3. You are hyper aware of unspoken emotional undercurrents. Psychologists sometimes talk about this in terms of low latent inhibition. In most people, the brain is efficient. It sees a chair, labels it chair, and stops thinking about it. For you, the brain sees the chair, notices the wear on the wood, wonders who built it, and feels the weight of the years that object has witnessed. When you are in a crowded, noisy environment, you are not just hearing the volume of the room, you're processing the collective emotional exhaustion of every person there. You pick up on the tension in the room that everyone else is ignoring. You feel the underlying anxiety of a friend who says they are fine, but whose body language is telling a completely different story. You aren't psychic, you're just a high signal processor in a low signal world. Sign 4. You feel like you're constantly living in the future. This is why you often feel like you are older than your age. It isn't because you have lived more years, it is because you have done more living inside your head. While others are reacting to the world as it happens, you're constantly running simulations of what will happen next. You feel the fatigue of future events before they even occur. You have already walked through the argument that hasn't happened yet, considered the ramifications of a decision you haven't made, and grieved for a change that is still months away. Sign 5. Digital noise feels like a physical attack. You likely notice this most in your digital life. You open your phone looking for connection or information, and within 30 seconds, you feel a deep, physical need to put it down. It is not just that you are tired of the screen, it is that the sheer volume of now hitting your brain feels like a physical assault. Every notification is a demand for attention, a demand for a reaction, a demand for a performance. You feel this intense pressure to match the urgency of the world around you, even though you know, rationally, that none of it matters. You aren't broken. You are just trying to run a high resolution operating system on hardware that was designed for basic text. Sign 6. You view solitude as a refueling station rather than a place to hide. You also need to adjust how you handle the moments when you are alone. You have likely been taught to view your need for solitude as a sign of social exhaustion or a failure to get out there. Change that framing immediately. You are not withdrawing from life, you are recalibrating. When you see your need to retreat as a refueling station rather than a hiding spot, you stop feeling guilty for needing it. You stop seeing yourself as broken for not being able to sustain the constant output required by modern social norms. You are a high signal processor, and high signal processors require maintenance. Sign 7. You are effectively a magnet for high signal connections. This shift in identity is the most important part of the process. For years, you have viewed your inability to enjoy the superficial as a lack of skill. You have thought, if I could just learn to do this, I would be happy. But that is like trying to force a high resolution camera to take blurry just to fit the standard. It isn't a lack of skill, it is a design choice. When you own this, your relationships change. You stop wasting time trying to convince yourself to enjoy the company of people who thrive on gossip, and you start actively looking for the people who are just as relieved as you are to finally talk about something that matters. You become a magnet for others who have been performing the same exhausting social script, and who are just as desperate to drop the mask. You don't need to change who you are to be happy. You need to stop asking yourself to live in a frequency that isn't yours. It is okay to be the person who brings a bit more weight to the table. When you stop apologizing for your internal complexity, you find that the world actually has plenty of space for it. You will still have moments where you feel like an outsider, and that is fine. That just means you are still looking at the world with the clarity that everyone else is too busy to maintain. The goal isn't to force yourself to be everywhere, but to be deeply present in the few places and conversations that actually command your intelligence. That is where you find the connection you have been looking for all along. If this resonated with you, it's likely because you've spent a lot of time feeling like you had to shrink yourself to fit into environments that didn't really suit you. I'd love to hear about a moment where you realized you were operating on a different wavelength than everyone else in the room. Let me know in the comments. And if you want to keep exploring how to make sense of these kinds of patterns, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We talk about this kind of stuff every week,